welcome. I'm Justine. I'm so glad you're here. I have a very special guest that I'm interviewing, and I can't wait for you to watch this. This is part of an interview series for the IM Code, the Intuitive Artist Mastery Code, which is a school for visionary and intuitive artists to really create thriving legacy businesses with their creations. So I hope you enjoy this special interview with this incredible guest, and be sure to like and subscribe if you're interested in learning more and being notified when I post a new interview. Take care, enjoy this. I hope you learned something. Mwah. Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi, Flora. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thank you. How are
Good to
you?
see you.
Nice to see you too. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. You as well. I feel like I've known you for a long time. Good friends with Alexis, and she's introduced me to your work years ago. So,
Beautiful.
and yeah, it's great to meet you this way as well. Yeah, and thank you, everyone who's joined us. What a great group. Well, you are a fellow intuitive painter, and it is really awesome to connect with you. And we some of the members of the IM code, which is my intuitive artist mastery code course, art school for intuitive painters, are here, and they have some questions for you as well. And some of the guests may have questions for you. Are you okay with having a Q&A at the end?
Yeah, definitely.
Great, great. Awesome. Well, we were just looking through your website, and just beautiful pieces. And I'm most curious about your connection to any sense of spirit when you're creating, or your connection to spirituality in any form when you're creating.
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. Thank you. In a lot of ways, I think it's like my approach to creativity and painting specifically is all about the connection to spirit. And, sometimes that word can be a little like, what does that mean? What are we talking about? And so for me, it's like the great mystery. It's things that are beyond our logical human sort of maybe understanding in a tangible way, but there's a deeper knowing that there's something much greater here, and something that connects all of us and all life. And so when I paint, something that I really try to bring to the process is just like an emptying out of my own, agenda or preconceived ideas of what needs to happen. And instead, I really try to open up to what wants to flow through, and just to allow myself to be sort of a conduit. And in response to what's coming through is, that's my role, is to like stay present to that, and then to make the next choice based on intuition. And so, yeah, it can be such a spiritual experience. I love that. And then there's also days where I'm not so much in that mode. I'm just like, I want to play with color,
Uh-huh.
and so I want to be like real about that too, is that, it can be really, I think it's always a sacred space to create intuitively, but I also think, some days feel more that way than others. But yeah, that's one of the things I love about this way of creating, is that it does open up that channel. And yeah, it brings that connection feeling that I think so many of us long for in life. The creative process is just like, here, I'll give it to you, just show up.
Yeah, yeah, that's a huge thing, right? Just showing up, definitely. Do you ever get um, really inspiring visions or an impulse to create something specific?
Sometimes I go into a piece with an idea. Maybe it's a vision I had, or a sketch I did, or something that inspired it. But I have a pretty like loose um, attachment to that, because I have found with my particular way of painting that if I go in too attached to wanting to achieve something that's in my mind, it really gets in the way of my process and my flow, because really what my process is about is change and being open, and like I said, just like responding to what happened with the next thing. And so yeah, it can be there, but it's never like the thing that it's never the purpose, I guess, which I know makes my process a bit different than some, like visionary artists, where they're really coming in with this idea that they want to get out onto the canvas. And I'm sort of like, maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. We'll see. I might turn it upside down and it's going to be a whole different thing. So, yes and no.
Yeah, I love that you said that. I was just about to ask you about the difference between intuitive art and visionary art, and you just sort of tapped. Can you go a little bit deeper into how you feel they are different and where they maybe connect?
Yeah, that's a cool question. I had the honor for a few years of curating a gallery of visionary artists, what they called visionary artists, at a festival here in Oregon. And so I saw, I was going through all these submissions of what people called visionary artists, and really it brought up a lot of me just going, what does that mean? What are we saying when we're talking about visionary artists? Because then I come from this whole other world where I call it intuitive art, and I think there's a lot of crossover. I think a lot of visionary artists are working from an intuitive place, but my experience of that genre is that there is a little more maybe preconceived idea about what they want to paint, which is the vision, right? Their vision. And so, yeah, I think, a lot of visionary art tends to, I don't know, feel very almost like psychedelic or like fractally and like really magical, which I think is wonderful. And then I think intuitive art almost feels like a bigger umbrella that visionary art might be underneath there. Because when I think of intuitive art, it's like, that can look like anything. That can be super abstract. That can be telling a story with figures and imagery, or it can just be like color fields. It's our intuition is just our internal impulse to follow our urges, right? That's how I think of intuition. And so what that actually looks like, that can be anything. Whereas I think visionary art tends to, and again, I don't like to put any art in a box, because someone might call themselves a visionary art and it might look very different than what I'm talking about. So, but I think from my experience in the world of visionary art, it does seem a little more like there's a goal, and then they're trying to paint this vision that they had.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well said. Thank you for that.
Sure.
It's cool to hear your perspective on it. And in that, you touched on something that I love your perspective on as well, which is plant medicine and how you feel about that, or what your experience is. Some people look at my work and they assume that I'm taking psychedelics while I'm making my work. And it's very important to me that people know that I don't, that it's very, it's a sober experience, that I am tapping into these other realms intuitively and coming back, and creating that from that open space that you're speaking from. Although I do think there is place and can be purpose in having experiences with the plant medicine. So what's your experience of that?
I love it. I've never been asked this question publicly.
Really? Oh, awesome.
So here we go.
There we go. It's a safe place.
Yeah.
On.
Totally. Well, I also paint sober, that's my space I like to be in. I use, I rely on a lot of movement and a lot of music and caffeine sometimes. But I'm also, I think, I have a lot of experience in that realm of plant medicine. And I think that it has such amazing potential for healing and for, just like allowing us to see beyond this veil, right? Beyond this sort of reality that we're in. And so I think it can be especially helpful for artists and creatives who are seekers of newness and expansion. That's oftentimes something that I think we hold in common as creative people, that we're like, we want evolution, we want healing, we want to see in new ways, we want to put things together in new ways, right? Like we're innovators in that way. And so I think working with plant medicine is definitely like one path that can be very, very powerful for people who resonate with that and who find safe containers to do that in. I'm a big fan of it happening in a good way, and having a lot of integration. And really, it's like you can have those experiences, but it's all about how do you integrate it and how do you bring it into your life in a way where you're not just having this like, major download and then it kind of just sort of like fizzles off, which I think can happen. So yeah, I think working consciously, mindfully, respectfully with those medicines, and with the intention of healing and the intention of bringing in information here on Earth that maybe will help others. Like I'm all for that. I think it's a beautiful path. It's exciting to see some of the changes happening in that world, and the people kind of waking up to the healing potential and bringing it out from the underground a little bit.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Really cool.
Sure.
I would have sort of pivot a little bit, and I'm really impressed by the way you run your business, and that you have all these incredible thriving components to your expression. And one of them that I'm most curious about, because I play in the publishing world a little bit, making Oracle decks, and some of our students are wanting to make books of their art or collections of their art in book form. And I'm curious about your experience with creating a book, as you've created several incredibly successful books. And do you work with a publisher? Are you doing these totally on your own? And how are you integrating the process of that birthing of a book with your creative process as a painter?
Yeah. So I have 5 books, which is so crazy. 3 of them happened in the last year and a half. And all 4 of them are with publishers. And the one that's not was a collaboration I did with my friend Pixie Lighthorse, and she self-publishes all her books. And so this was a children's book that I illustrated and she wrote. And so we just did it through her self-publishing channel that she's well acquainted with. So that was a really cool experience for me to get to do it that way. But yeah, my other books are 3 are with one publisher, and the Art of Aliveness book is with another publisher. So I'm not the best person around to talk to around self-publishing and doing that, because I really haven't done that way. Although I think it's really a great option. And I love that there's so many new channels and ways to plug in and print on demand and all of that stuff that makes self-publishing, I think, a lot more doable these days than even like 5 years ago. But yeah, I've worked with publishers, so that's my experience.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and they're it's writing a book, creating a book is just a whole nother creative process, right? It's just like, I find that the elements of a creative process are all kind of the same no matter what you're doing. It's like there's the brainstorming, there's the getting it out, then there's the editing, and then there's the refining and figuring out the order of things, what's important, what can go. Like it's all sort of the same. So yeah, I've enjoyed writing is an edge for me. Painting is like, oh yeah, that's like breathing for me is painting, right? But writing and putting together these books is definitely like, okay, Flora, like we're like stepping up to the plate here and digging deep and doing something that's doesn't come as easily, but it's, those are often the things that are very satisfying too once you do them. So it's been a real honor to get to create the books that I have created.
So awesome. So when you're in that process, we were just speaking about different flow states we get in. So I was talking about, for me in the past, it's been difficult to switch gears from creative projects. So if I'm tattooing, grinding through a period of that, and then switching to painting and pushing out a show, they needed at times to be the sole focus, and I needed to switch. And now I'm in a place where I have flow and integration, and I'm doing both kind of simultaneously through each day, each week, and it's really lovely right now. So I'm curious about that for you. How is that for you, like switching gears from all the things?
Yeah, I relate to well, I'll just speak from, the writing these 2 books that I just did this last year. Like my painting really went on the back burner when I was doing the writing. Although every time I did paint, I thought, oh my God, I need to be doing this more because this is what I'm writing about and it's really important. But I struggle too with switching those gears on a really big project, like a book. Like I feel like I have to kind of go all in, but I prefer, it sounds like you do too. I prefer variety. And so I think usually when I'm not writing a book, I do have a lot of variety in my business, between painting and then teaching online courses, usually teaching in-person courses, just doing like newsletters and, the entrepreneurial stuff that we have to do too. I love that there's like no day is ever really the same in my life, which is something I really like. I also like to find some touch points of routine in there, but yeah, I like to bounce around, and I think, I get different things from different pursuits that I do, the different parts of my business. And so, yeah, it's nice. That's one of the beautiful things, right, about being a creative entrepreneur is never a dull moment.
Totally. Flora, would you consider yourself an introvert or extrovert?
I recently, like a little while ago, I heard the term ambivert, and
what is that?
That's when you're like half and half.
Okay.
And that totally resonated with me because I've never been able to say I'm not one or the other I really love people, and I get a lot of energy from people, and I also really get a lot of energy from alone time. And I'm a Libra, so maybe that's part of it. Like I need the balance. I need both. I don't like one to have I really thrive when I sort of have both. So I think I'm an ambivert.
I love that. I've never heard of that. Thank you for teaching that to us. How cool.
It was new to me too.
So awesome. I'd love to open it for some questions, and maybe some of the questions I know maybe Katinka or Natalie might have about commission work. So maybe we could talk about that too, if that's a possibility. Any questions out there?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and ask the question about like the commission work. I was wondering if it's something I don't think you do it right now, at least I don't think we saw it on your website, but is it something that you used to do, and then how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I've done a lot of commission work throughout my career, and I've actually done a few pieces recently that came my way. It's not something I really advertise because of the nature of my process. Speaking to this before, how I don't like to have like a preconceived goal. It makes commission work a little bit tricky for my process. But I found some ways to work with that work for me, and so. I just tell people, look, I'm going to do my thing. And the things I'm open to hearing are what size you want, of course. And then, I have people look at my previous work, and I just say, if there's anything you really are not wanting in terms of my iconic sort of imagery that I tend to use, let me know that. And if there's anything you really do want, and then let me know a couple paintings that you like the color scheme of. So I get this like sort of, you know, broad like structure from folks. And then I find, you know, this is kind of an interesting thing, I think, for creatives. Like sometimes I find that having that structure makes me feel it's like easier, you know, it like opens me up in a way where I can be really free within that. And when I'm teaching, I call it the banks of the river. Like give yourself banks of the river so you can flow wildly within them. And so I just make sure people really understand that what happens on the canvas is a mystery, but that I can have these parameters. And I used to, I didn't do this in the recent ones, but I used to paint 2 paintings for every commission. And that was a way that it felt like the pressure kind of went off of me, and then people got to choose. Sometimes they ended up buying both. Oftentimes, you know, they really loved one and then I would just sell the other one to somebody else. But when I paint, I work on more than one piece because of the layering process that I do. So basically because I need the paint to be drying always in order to layer. And so I always have to be going back and forth between at least 2 paintings. So for me, it was kind of a natural way to do it anyway. And yeah, that worked really well for me for some years. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I love hearing that. Thank you for sharing that inside experience and process.
Sure.
Any other questions popping up from anyone? Feel free to just unmute yourself.
I have a question.
Go for it. Hi.
Flora, you were talking about plant medicine and integrating, and you know, you have these sometimes transformational experiences during those times. And what's your experience been of integrating? Like, how do you go about integrating?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I think, you know, I work with the people that I work with in those realms are really into integration. So they hold that container beforehand, afterwards, with like talking and then one-on-one sessions and things like that. So that's a piece of it. But I think like my personal work is just to, you know, it's like you get these insights about how you need to change your life, right? In these moments, you kind of go, oh, wow, I could really like fine tune this or ditch that and bring more of that in. So really, it's just a matter of doing the things. You know, if you realize what you really need is less time on your technology, well, then integration looks like less time on your technology, you know, and really sticking to it. I also have a really great community of people that I tend to do that work with. And so I think that can be super helpful to not feel like you're, you know, to have sort of accountability with folks that maybe you went through some experiences with. They know what you're trying to work on, and so you can help each other out in that way. Yeah, those are a few things.
Thank you. I ask because I've had, I don't know, 2 or 3 different experiences, not necessarily just with plant medicine, but also with transformational work and being around, you know, transformational work. It was just being around a lot of different energies. And then I felt like I go into a depression at the end of it, you know, and then other times with plant medicine, not having that support on the back end and not knowing what to do with all of this information that was downloaded.
Yeah, no, that's a real thing. It's a real thing for sure. Yeah, just seeking out those. I think sometimes when even before we go into those experiences, it's like, okay, think about the other side, right? And what are you going to need to support yourself afterwards? Can be a good thing to consider.
Yeah, thank you. I think that from the past experiences, now having experienced that, not like the lack of support, I guess, on the back end, it's like if I were to go into it again now, it's like I would, yeah, have a completely different outlook. And also being like part of the creation of the support system.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of see that too as the creative process. We've talked about that being sometimes after you complete a big project, there's that depression that comes at the end.
Oh,
and
yeah.
how to navigate that. It's kind of like when you have this like epic journey through a plant medicine experience, there can be that drop off, like, oh, okay, now that insane experience is over. Now, who am I based on what I have just learned? And after you do a big birthing of a creative process, that's my experiences too. It's like, whoa, who am I now after I've done all of this? I'm a completely new version of myself. And how do I integrate that into who I want to show the world I am? What kind of new art do I want to make from that? How do I take those gifts and lessons and really embody them and reinvent myself? And I think reinvention is like a massive part of being an artist and owning that. Do you feel that way, Flora? How do you feel about reinvention?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think it's almost like a requirement in some way, right? That we like stay on this edge of evolution and not fall into these habitual patterns, because that's not where inspiration lives, right? In those doing things the same way over and over again. And so, yeah, I think it's our responsibility to be kind of always, pushing, maybe not, I don't want to use the word always, because I also honor that there's times to just like hold steady and go deep into whatever you're doing. But then, like, I love what you're saying about like you come out of that, out of a big art project, out of a big experience, and we're new in a way. And like collectively, globally, we're all in that boat right now with this
Good
last,
point.
I had a friend recently talk about COVID in this way that I thought was super interesting. He was like, you know how farmers let their fields go fallow for a year so that the nutrients can build up, and then like the new growth comes from that. He said we're basically like coming out of a fallow year of like everybody sort of, right, like coming down off of whatever, like, COVID. COVID happened, we all did our thing, and now and not to say COVID is over, because it's not, but we're all kind of emerging in this way, and we're different people. I think we're all different people, right? We've all been through like a really big thing together. And so I'm about to go lead 3 in-person retreats, and I keep thinking, wow, this is a really potent moment to come together in a transformational retreat setting, because we're redefining who we are. And it's like that word integration is really relevant. Like, how do we integrate what we've just been through? And so I think there's a lot of ways to do it. I'm a big body somatic person. So for me, it's like, how do we move this through our bodies? How do we get in touch with our bodies? I love writing. I love painting, meditating, visualizing, like just all of those practices, I think, are our friends right now as we integrate what just happened, and then like redefining how do we want to move forward now that the world is a really different place and everyone in it is a different person. It's can be a little overwhelming for sure, I think, but also it's exciting to me as a creative who sort of thrives on that energy. It's an exciting time of redefinition and hopefully, making some really good decisions for how we're moving forward as humans, because we need to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there was any big kind of reinvention for yourself over the last year or so?
Yeah, I would say just I'm a doer, I tend to like overdo. Like I have a lot of ideas. I like to make things happen. And so I just really got so clear during COVID about how much I was overdoing, and how important like real quiet and downtime and space and like soul time with myself, how I need more of that. And so yeah, I feel like my bandwidth for just like socializing and running around and all of it, like I used to travel a lot, and doing all of that stuff has really it's like coming home, and yeah, I'm just trying to remember that as opportunities start to come again and the world's kind of starting to open. I'm just like, okay, wait, like be really discerning about what you say yes to, and remember what you've learned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you notice anything shifting in your art with that? or maybe over the path, like over your career as an artist, can you identify like significant switches in the way your style has evolved or things like that, or reinvention in that?
Yeah, I think I go like in like different waves of things feel interesting to me at different times. Like I sometimes just need a lot of quiet space in my paintings, and I find that I'll just really love like more muted tones and more just quiet. And then I have other times in my life where my paintings are just like bananas, you know, and they're just like all the colors and all the marks and just a whole different energy. And so yeah, and that's like ongoing. I also change up the size that I work in. I'll go through periods where I'm only doing really big work, and then you know, all of a sudden all I want to do is sit at my kitchen table and do stuff that's like this big. And that's a really different experience. And I find that change to, I love that I get to have both, you know, because sometimes I just need to like bring it down to something little. And then, yeah, this, you know, the book that I just wrote is called The Art of Aliveness. And that whole book is about how you don't even need paintbrush. You don't even need to paint, that the creative process is something that can just infuse our whole lives if we are tuning into it in that way. And so that's been a topic that I've been like really geeking out on as I've been writing this book, just thinking, how can we feel more alive? You know, how can we use creativity to feel more alive without even ever having to make a thing? Like, I think that's a really juicy conversation, and sort of dissolving this boundary that I think sometimes as artists we can get into, where it's like we have our life over here and then we have our art over here. I'm really interested in how those can overlap and how our whole life can start to feel like our piece of, like, our masterpiece, you know, our greatest masterpiece is just like, how are we living our life? What does that look like? And, you know, the book is about all the tools that I've learned through painting for so long. So, you know, things like embracing contrast and being open to change, listening to intuition, working with what's working, like all these little nuggets. And then how do they apply to life? And so that's kind of my latest thing that I'm feeling most excited about. And even my retreats coming up are less focused on this big painting process and more focused on the art of aliveness. So
I love that.
that's a big change.
Wow.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone that is just starting out on their creative journey? Like, they know they want to dive into making something deep from within them, but are absolutely terrified of letting that out. I just met someone yesterday who is experiencing this.
Yeah.
Just has so much kind of trauma around, like, everything you're saying is bad, or everything you're creating is bad. Someone was saying this to her growing up, and, you know, like, how would you tell someone to shake that?
Yeah, that's so real. I mean, I work with people all the time that are in that boat. I think it's a lot of why people show up to my stuff is because they're, you know, feeling really stuck, but they know they want it. And so there's a lot of ways in, I think, from that space. One of my favorites is actually closing your eyes and creating without your eyes open. And with music, I like that combo of music and eyes closed. It would be beautiful without music too, but I think the music can just kind of get you in even quicker, because I think when people are in that space, they're in a self-criticism loop, right? There's an inner critic that's like really loud, and the inner critic comes from when we see what we've done. And so if we want to get into a feeling space with our creative process, it's like, just close your eyes, you know, and let go of what it looks like, even if that's just how you start. Because I think oftentimes starting can be a real challenge for people. How do I even get in there? And so that's the first thing that I do in most of my painting workshops is that we do blindfolds if people are comfortable with that, or we close our eyes and we finger paint. That's another thing that I think gets people really into like a sensory space really quickly. So the canvases are on the wall. You could also put just like a big piece of paper on the wall. I'm a fan of big because it lets people let loose more. So I know you do big work. I can see it behind you there too. So it's like tape up even just a big piece of paper, close your eyes, put on a song you love, grab like crayons, whatever, markers, paint, oil pastels, pencils, doesn't even matter. Use both hands because there's something there too about getting out of our dominant hand space, and then just let yourself express in that space. I think that can be a really powerful exercise. And again, it can just be a starting point. But I think, yeah, getting clear on like what are our intentions with creating? Are we trying to make a beautiful thing? Or are we trying to have a healing experience? Like the creative process can show up for us or meet us in a lot of different spaces. And so I think it's important to get clear on like, what are we wanting from this thing? Because I know in painting, there's a whole world called process painting where, you know, the teachers there will tell you to burn that thing at the end. You know, it's like, it is not about what this thing looks like. And I think there's such beauty in that and healing in that. I kind of am a hybrid. Like how I teach and what I bring to it is that I really try to get people like in that feeling, intuitive, letting go space. And I also honor that people want to like what it looks like, you know, like, and I think that there's something like really real about that and not to be denied, you know, like I think we can have it all, I guess. And so it's an interesting dance between intuition and also kind of going, what color do I need more of here to make this feel more balanced, you know? But I come from a, you know, professional artist gallery background. And so I'm like, how can we do both? Like, isn't that yummy? And isn't that life, right? Like, isn't that what we have to do in life? Sometimes we get to be wild and free and not think about the outcome. And sometimes we have to like think about the outcome. And I think getting comfortable in that space of knowing when to put which lens on can be a really powerful practice, you know.
I love that. Thank you, Flora. That is so helpful. That is awesome. I'm going to suggest that to her.
It's a good one.
Thanks. Any other questions out there? Feel free to unmute yourselves.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, Anna.
Oh yeah, hi, how are you?
Good. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm just kind of transitioning from mixed media and art journaling to painting on canvases and working with acrylic and trying to, I felt like, I mean, everything you're saying, you've both said resonates so much with me, especially during COVID. I hadn't realized how coming out of COVID, I wanted to change what I'm doing. You know, I was doing a lot of art journaling and mixed media, and I felt like I was so bored with that. I needed something different. And now I'm learning, and I'm watching lots of videos and reading a lot of books about painting and drawing, and because I didn't do any of that while I was with the art journaling, you know, it was mostly all intuitive. And I like the intuitive process, of course. It's such a high. I love it. And but now I'm painting, and there are things that appear on my canvas or my paper that I love, and I don't know how to go beyond that. You know, I see a space that I really love, and I think, okay, what do I want to say here? What do I want to do next? And I don't know. I feel stuck at that point. Does that make any sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, it does.
So how do I just like leave that in there, or do I just continue on or cover it up? Because I can't tell you how many this one canvas I've got now. I don't know how many layers on it, and I don't know. I put music on, and but I see something that I really like, and I just don't know what to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's so common, and I hear that a lot and see that a lot with my students. And I think it's a fine line, you know, because sometimes something happens on our canvas and we go, "Ooh, I really like that." And so then for the rest of the painting, we're trying to preserve it. And what that does often is remove us from our flow that we're in, because something suddenly is so precious on the canvas that it's almost like it creates a block. And so that can happen. And, you know, when we do something really amazing, suddenly the whole painting might want to orient around that thing, and that could be a really beautiful thing. So you really have to kind of just be aware of, like, is this thing that I love serving me, or is it actually hindering me ultimately? Oh my God, it's such a metaphor in life too, right? Like we like meet someone and they're amazing, but then all of a sudden we realize, oh my gosh, I'm focusing so much on this person that it's like getting in the way of the rest of the things or whatever. It's a balance. You know, the way that I paint and teach is this layering process where with each layer, some things are staying and some things are going. And so we actually get the opportunity in that process to keep things that we love and then let go of other things. But then again, it's, you know, something that you loved at one point, when everything else around it changes, all of a sudden it might not feel so important anymore. And so instead of getting attached to that for the whole painting, being really present, well, like, is that still working? Do I still love it as much as I did before? Or is it now kind of getting in my way? And I think one of the most powerful things we can do is let things go that we used to love, if they're actually not really serving us anymore. If you're loving it and it's great and the painting's all working and you're in your flow and like, yes, that thing is so still there, that's great. Like, no need to change it. But I see it happen all the time, and in my own work too, where this thing that used to be like, oh yeah, that's what this painting's all about, all of a sudden it's like, no, actually that needs to go. And sometimes what will happen is it'll pop up on another part of the canvas, like an image or something, and it's like, oh, it wanted to be there, but it just wanted to shift over here. And so I think the biggest lesson that I get from my own creative process is the openness to change, which is so helpful in life, right? That's like a direct translation. It's like, as we're strengthening those muscles of flexibility, spontaneity, improvisation, like knees bent energy, it's so much easier to flow in life when things, you know, come and go, and it's working, now it's not working, that kind of thing. So I hope that's helpful.
That was very helpful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Something I do too with that, when I get stuck on a part that I'm just in love with and it's ruining the rest of the piece because that's all I want to keep, is I'll take a photo of it, and that helps me preserve that moment that I love so much, and then allows me to go and move on. And then if I really want to recreate that, I have reference for it, so I can bring it back later. So, great answer to that. That was very eloquent.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you both.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I just want to say, Flora, I really like your energy. I followed some of your classes, and I'm living in Seattle, but right now I'm traveling, visiting my family in Canada now that I can get up here. And so everything you've said today is so relevant, because I'm feeling kind of frustrated, because after cocooning for a year and painting every day and making that my focus, I'm up here not really painting. So I'm just trying to think of, you know, what I can make. I'm here with my family, and what creative thing I could do to make it, you know, not so, I don't know what to say. So I'm not missing my painting so much. So that was really, really interesting. And I hope one day I'll get to do like a class with you. It's just never quite worked out. And you did that online retreat thing, but I've been away. So I just thought, just not happening yet. But I really love the energy, and I love I have some of your classes. I love putting it on and painting while you're painting. I just love the energy, so good. So
Thank
yeah.
you.
Thank you.
I always love to draw when I'm traveling, you know, like really like fill my sketchbooks, and then it all feeds back into the painting process, but that can be a nice way to keep connected to it.
I'll try and do that. Thank you.
I just want to jump in to follow that and to say that I was one of the ones that took Flora's first online virtual retreats called Reunite. And yes, if ever you get a chance to do it, it was absolutely amazing. And I have to say though, Flora, that since then I've been quite stuck. Like right after I was really motivated and for a few weeks, and then now it's been a few months actually since I've actually painted anything. And so I'm glad you brought up the blindfolding thing. I think that's what I'm going to start by doing. So thanks for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, I know starting is the hardest part, like with anything, right? That we know is good for us. So often just starting. So that's a good way in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks. Oh yeah, it was so good.
I just want to say one more thing and then I'll stop. But I find finishing the hardest. So I know you have that one class, but I don't know if you'll do any more of that or not, or have anything to help me with that.
Yeah, no, finishing, especially when you're in this like intuitive art world, it's like, well, when is it finished? It can be, you could always keep going, right? So I'd say that's a big pain point for people, but I do have a course on that specifically, and in all my courses, we talk a lot about that. And, I think one thing to remember is like this gap that often exists between what we think of as what a finished painting looks like and where we are at in our skill level and just how much we have practiced. And, I hear this from beginners a lot, that they have a really hard time finishing. It's like, well, probably because you want it to look this way, but you haven't actually put in the hours to make it look that way. And so that's just something to be real with. And because the only way to get more confident with anything we're doing, right, is just to do it a lot. And so I think doing a lot of work, can be where like doing a lot of small studies can be really great instead of having the pressure of these big canvases. But yeah, you're not alone with the struggle of finishing, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions out there?
Can I?
So I saw, oh, go ahead, go for it.
Was it that lady once? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so glad to be here because this is like all spontaneous. I didn't think I'd be in this class, but I got an email and I'm kind of shy person and I wasn't going to come in. But I do have your book, Flora, and it's really nice to meet you. I know you from SARC. From SARC, yeah. And your YouTube videos are amazing. Whenever I watch them, they make me in the best mood ever. I love them, and I love the music you put with it. And you're very so interesting person, like all of you guys in here. Because I don't really have too many creative friends. I'm like, art kind of found me. People always told me I was an artist, and I'm like, no, I don't have anything to do with art. Never took an art class. I never had an opportunity to take it, but a lot of people would always tell me to do art. And I was like, this is weird. And I would dream about it too. And a matter of fact, I had a dream this morning with my sister that we were in this place and then we're showing sketches. So I'm like, oh gosh, another dream like this. And I get these dreams of it. So I'm never followed my intuition. But now that I'm older, I start following it. And if I'm shy, I just push myself to do something because normally I hold myself back. I don't go into places that are really good for me. I back away. I don't know why I do these things. I had a lot of trauma in my life. Probably that's what it is too. So, but it's very good. Nice to meet you. I'm glad I pushed myself through to come in here.
Nice to meet you too. Thanks
Thank you.
sharing.
Thank you.
Anything else? Or Natalie, you had something you wanted to share, yeah?
I just wanted to ask, so I saw your website and I feel like it's kind of clear what your mission is with your artwork, but I just wanted to see if you can elaborate more, like what drives you and to do your artwork for like.
I think, I have my business is very much, most of it is around like guiding other folks, so I do my own painting, but that's sort of like not the focus anymore. It hasn't been for a long time. I still love it and it still feeds me and it's like soul time and it just is like healing and all the things is why I do the art. But for me, it was such a great experience for me to start sharing my process with other people and realize like how much I got from seeing other people remember that they have creative capacity, because I think there's just been a forgetting that has happened for a lot of people. And just to kind of, I sometimes I call myself like a permission giver, because I feel like that's kind of just what I do, is that I just open the door and I give enough of a container to help people get going and prompts and little inspirations to get in. But it's really just that space that's nurturing and safe to say, you can do this. And this is part of what being a human is that you are creative. And like we all came in on this magical creative, carpet ride, and like we get to be that here. And so that's really my joy and purpose these days, is just opening those doors for other folks to remember and walk through. Yeah.
Great question and response. Love that. Well, I want to thank you so much, Flora, for everything you shared with us and taught us today and inspired us with today. And thank you all so much for your awesome questions and for showing up and holding space for this container to be created. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And please connect with Flora individually if you want to learn more about her awesome classes and retreats coming up. It's so exciting.
I know, we're doing the in-person thing again. It's
so awesome.
It's happening.
Retreat, where are they going to be?
The first one actually I know is open still. It's in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and it's called The Gathering of the Creatives. And Julia Cameron is the keynote, and it's a cool event. I've taught at it before. It's in this beautiful old hotel, and you just get to pop into all these different classes throughout the weekend. It's sweet. Then I'm going to Morocco. That's a whole nother thing. That one's full already, but we're doing a 12-day Art of Aliveness excursion in Morocco. Wow. And then after that, I'm teaching at the Omega Institute in New York at the end of October. And I think there's still space in that one too. They're all on my website. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Epic, prolific, inspiring. Thank you, Flora.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's so nice to connect with you and with everybody. Thanks for taking the time to be here. Yeah. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And I hope you all dive into your intuitive creativity today or this week and have fun. Lots of love to you all. Thank you again, Flora. What an honor. Mwah. Thank you. Bye, everyone.